welcome back to the channel. Hope we're all doing very well and having an absolutely wonderful day so far, as always whenever you get around to watching this video. And today you are joining me on Tuesday the 22nd of July. It is just about to go 4:30 in the morning. There we go. I'm trying to get the days correct. I think today AJ is 3 days out. That also makes my client Kai, who is also doing the show this weekend, 3 days out. I, however, am not any number of days out, which is fantastic, but I am about 3 days out from finishing this diet, that's for sure. Today I have got a leg day. I've also got a normal work day. I've got some setup work to do, some check-in to do, obviously. So I wanted to essentially just take you along another day, a different day from the last day that you'd seen, which was obviously a rest day, my like lower days. Whereas today I've actually got legs, and on a leg day I do eat slightly more food. So today I've actually got macro-wise, which I'll put on the screen now, I've got 190 grams of protein, 40 grams of fat, 150 grams of carbs. So these are kind of like my higher days, and I often actually see that my body weight does drop after these days as well. So they do definitely have benefit with the way that we set up the diet, and I'll definitely talk about that in this video, is how you maybe set up a diet for somebody, with having maybe like high days, medium days, low days, refeed days, whatever it may be. And they definitely have huge merit when they can be used, and definitely for myself, they definitely have done throughout this whole diet. We have done that with having different days, but especially in these latter stages. But we've seen some decent shifts over the past couple of days. I was 118.8 pounds yesterday, back up to 119 today. And that was obviously following on from the PCA show day that we had on Sunday at PCA for Coventry, which was amazing. AJ obviously won his class in what was a non-tested show, so it wasn't like a natural PCA show, it was just PCA Coventry. He won classic short, which I was just mega proud of him for. He looked fantastic, definitely a good improvement, step forward, which is what it's all about. So I'll definitely put some pictures up of AJ on the screen somewhere here, and of course Ella also competed in wellness as a little bit of like a secret early show. Everyone's been like, oh my god, I thought Ella was doing physique. I'm like, yeah, she is doing physique. She's just doing wellness early because why not? And it's fun and it's enjoyable and you can do it, and bodybuilding is about doing different things and having fun and just seeing what you're capable of in so many different areas, right? There's so many different ways to look at it, and that's what I like about bodybuilding, is you can make it your own. You know, you can be extremely competitive goals, or you can try different things with competitive goals. You could not have competitive goals, and you can just enjoy training, just enjoy growing, etc. But one thing I know for certain, I am ready to get back growing, because I have had enough now. I'm gonna diet. I feel great. Like, adherence wise is not an issue for me dieting. I really like the feeling of dieting, but when I think about myself as a bodybuilder, you get to, I was saying this on my story yesterday, you get to a point like this in a diet. So I've been dieting for I think 12 weeks now, and you're either like, okay, we are now at that stage where we just keep going and like we get shredded and it's worth it, and you get past that stage where like, yeah, you're feeling small and flat, but you know, you are pursuing that goal of getting very lean, so it's worth it. Or you're at the point where I'm like, I've done and achieved everything that I need to with this diet, and now I would like to grow. I would like to grow some muscles. That is the goal of bodybuilding. I am small and I don't want to just be in a phase where I'm not stepping forward. And that to me is why I love bodybuilding, because it's like we are stepping forwards. I hate the feeling of just like being still. Does that make sense? Like, I want to either be growing and improving, or if I'm getting lean, I'm getting lean for a purpose. I'm getting lean to get on stage and display the muscularity that I built. But like, you know, right now I'm not even a year post show, and I've not really made that many improvements from last year, because that initial phase is dedicated towards just recovering from the prep, in all honesty, especially for most females. So I'm ready to get stuck into a really good growth phase now ahead. It's time. But for now, I have to go do my steps. I get to go do my steps. That's a great point. Sorry, I know I've been rambling for a while, but what I've written in my my book this morning is I'm grateful that I get to do all the work that I get to do. I'm grateful that I am physically capable of all the things that I get to do each day, because we can easily say like, oh, I've got to eat my meals, I've got to do my steps. No, you get to eat your meals, you get to do your steps, you get to train. That is a privilege, and do not ever forget that. Just got back from my little walk. I have a nice little message left here. So that's obviously for me. I'm assuming that's a reminder for me as well. Although I put him here. See, he's here in my grateful for yesterday. But today's notes has added him in himself. The next segment of my morning was very simply just me doing check-ins and then coming on to my meal one, which I have talked you through 1,000,001 times, and this is actually not any different. So today's diet is slightly different. As I say, it's a bit more of a higher day, but my meal one stays the exact same. You guys know I'm probably never changing this meal, so I didn't want to bore you talking about it again for the millionth time, but just a little recap in case anyone's new here. We've got 175 grams of raspberries, 40 grams of whey, Naughty Boy cinnamon bun whey, of course, and 20 grams of almond butter. And then I just cracked on with some more work. I actually did a setup, which you can see a little bit of a time lapse of me doing the onboarding video here, just kind of walking through the entire setup for this client in advance of them getting started. And then I will catch you all up at the next meal. It is now time for the pre-workout meal. I've got this laid out. I'm just going to go and get changed and then we will eat. But this meal is actually the same on all my days. So I've got chicken, a mixture of veggies, which I personally do broccoli sprouts, tomatoes, and a little bit of kimchi. And then I do 60 grams worth of rice cakes and 20 grams of dark chocolate for my fats. So that's the pre-workout meal, as I say, which I've kept the same on my upper days and lower days. So even though I have had less food on my upper days, I still keep the pre-workout meal the same, because it's really the most important meal in terms of actually fueling the sessions. So I'm gonna prioritize my carbohydrates, or more of them, around that workout window. When I have less of them, most of them will also go to that pre-workout window as well. So this has been the same on my upper days. The differences that will come in will be having more carbohydrates in my post-workout meal. So I will again have 60 grams of a rice cake variety in my post, which I'll talk you through when we get to it. And then I'll have a little bit of extra carbs in my last meal, but predominantly around that training window is where we like to have them. I still don't have any carbs in my intra at the moment, just doing EAAs in the intra, because I honestly don't find that I really need them with my sessions not being one super long, having a decent amount of food pre, and also just being at a point where when my food's not super high and I'm a little bit hungry, I would just rather have a little bit of extra carbohydrates around the training window rather than putting them in the intra when I genuinely don't really feel as though I need them at this point. But 100% when my food gets a little bit higher, I do always like to put even just a little bit, if it's 10 grams of carbs, especially when my sessions are longer and I am actually trying to grow and improve and I'm in those pushing phases. The sessions are generally, as I say, a bit more challenging as well. I do find it definitely helps a little bit, but for now I've seen definitely no negative side effects of not having that in, especially with having a good amount pre and post. So I'm gonna set up here. I will be consuming this shortly. I'm just gonna go and get myself ready to go to the gym. The weather is very strange because it's really grey and dark, but it's also still quite hot. So I'm weighing up in my head as to whether I wear leggings, whether I wear shorts. I don't like wearing shorts on leg day because I find that I stick to everything and the knee sleeves are not fun to get on. But at the same time, I hate being too warm when I train legs, so it's like, which way do you go? Probably what I'll do is I'll wear shorts and I'll take leggings as a backup in case I need. But gonna get this sorted now, then we will head to the gym. AJ's actually gonna come with me today because his car's getting washed. He's obviously, as I said at the start, he's actually 4 days out. I think it's 4 days out. So he has got a pretty short session today. But I will make sure that my session is pretty efficient. I'm not going to take you along for it because you've seen the session literally a million times. But we're going to head to the gym, probably get a coffee on the way as always. And yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. And then I'll catch you.
You don't need to worry about me. I'm happy listening to more of this podcast. I'm happy with you.
Exercise execution as well as exercise selection.
Spin
Come on, let me show you.
A hack squat?
One day,
And
load those legs up.
A hack squat.
It's always going to be quite simple.
We've just returned from the gymnasium and I've returned home to a parcel. So I wanted to show you what I have actually got because I'm actually very excited to have this in regularly. I have only had it once because we got a sample on Sunday, but it was very, very good. So I'm excited to have this in regularly. So what I've got is I've got the Pit Stop Nutrition Rise and Shine. And I've got this one in peach iced tea flavour. The last one that I got was cherry blackberry or something. It was really nice. But basically, it's a nootropic and hydration formula. So obviously great for, funnily enough, hydrating, but also just for morning focus. And I struggle a lot with feeling a bit like jittery and a bit anxious, to be honest, especially in the morning. And when I had this on Monday, when I was just doing like my Monday morning check-ins, I felt really focused, but I also felt very like calm and clear-headed, which funnily enough is ideal. So got some more of this. I highly recommend it. And I also got some more HL Labs right on because it's the absolute goat. So just some recommendations because this is probably my favourite pump product, and this is going to probably become one of my new favourites. So I'm interested to see what the flavour is like. I'll probably let you know about that one in the next video. Okay, so I have just prepared my post-workout meal. I can tell that I have trained legs because my brain is not doing the brain thing at the moment. I just tried to intro this section and just did not have the correct words. So since my last clip, I have actually finished off my sets for the day. So I did a half an hour walk. I finished off my steps. So I'm on 14,500 at the moment. I'm getting in 15,000 steps a day, but I'll accumulate those final 500 just doing jobs around the house and knock a rice cake over. And what I do sometimes fall victim to is I will like finish off my steps and I'll be on like 15k, but then I end up getting too busy with jobs and then my steps end up being like 17, 18k, which is not what I want. I don't need to do more steps than is necessary for the goals. But I have, as I say, prepped my post-workout meal, which is a little bit different actually today, and I'm actually really happy with this and excited to see how it goes. So what we've actually got here is we have got 100 grams of lean beef, I cannot get my words out, 100 grams of lean beef mince, 5% obviously, with 50 grams of courgette, 50 grams of tomatoes, 50 grams of Brussels sprouts, a little bit of kimchi, 50 grams of rice cake. So I did bring the amount of rice cakes down just a little bit because obviously there's some fat from the beef. The reason why I'm having beef post-workout is because one, I wanted to have it and I would like to have some red meat, but we also mainly just had some in the fridge that needed eating. And I don't really think that honestly having the beef post-workout, the small amount of fat that's in it is really going to be an issue at all with regards to fats, because yes, you want to prioritize carbohydrates post, but it's very small amount. If you're maybe having a very, very high fat meal, then you might go, oh, okay, it's maybe better to have something that's a little bit faster digesting, and then little bit of fruit, so 100 grams of raspberries to go alongside this. Definitely some benefits, as I've said this before, of having fructose alongside your normal post-workout meal, with just helping with uptake of carbohydrates. But honestly, I like to have this because I like fruit and I like raspberries. I did get a comment on my last video about the different foods in my diet, and obviously that's an insight on that one day. one specific day. I do have different food on different days at different points in my diet. I like to have a different variety of fruits. You'll see I have raspberries a lot, but at a point when I'm dieting, like I like bananas, I do like blueberries as well. But when I'm dieting and my calories aren't super high, raspberries are generally going to be the most satiating and voluminous berry or fruit source for you to have alongside like strawberries as well. But right now, raspberries are my go-to. I do always try to make sure that I have a nice variety in my diet for enjoyment, but you also have to eat what you have to eat for the goal at specific points in time as well, and particularly in a prep or in a diet. For certain periods you might be sticking to specific food sources that meet your calorie goals or get the job done or a little bit more satiating. But definitely when you're in off season, it's good to have a wider variety of foods in. But at the end of the day, like, we're not all perfect. I think we could be doing definitely worse things than having raspberries in multiple meals across the day. So don't overthink or beat yourself up if maybe you read things like that and think, oh my god, am I doing something wrong? Like, if you're eating for your goals and you're eating good quality food for the most part, just doing a great job, keep being consistent. And if you're consistent with a diet like this, it's definitely great, rather than trying to be perfect with everything and then you have one day where you just go and eat a load of shit. That's probably not ideal. So it's the consistency and the effort that counts. But I'm going to eat this because I need to eat this meal, and then we'll probably talk a little bit about having some higher food days and places of merit within diets. You are currently joining me in a room that I don't think we've actually spent much time in the vlogs. This is my get ready room, our also dumping ground room for all of our MBW clothes, AJ's sim room. There's a lot of things going on in here. This was the spare bedroom, but we don't have a child and we don't often have guests, so it's become a room of miscellaneous things. But we have come up here this evening so that I can just briefly discuss with you some of the examples and reasons and places just in general where maybe running higher food are actually beneficial, because it's good for me to give you some education, some insights in these videos. So the example that we have for myself, this is probably the best place to start, is obviously where I am in a deficit and the goal is still fat loss, but within my general baseline deficit setup, I have one day within that setup where my food is a little bit higher. I personally have separate days where I have my rest days where my calories are a little bit lower. My upper days, again, calories are a bit lower, similar to where they are on rest days, but I have slightly higher carbs, slightly lower fats, purely to fuel training. And then on a leg day, I have slightly higher carbohydrates. So you might look at that and you might think, well, why not just make all of the days the same? And you could do that, you definitely could do, but there is also always a reasoning to setting things up for their specific purpose and for how that maybe benefits different individuals. And especially when we are looking at bodybuilding and maintaining muscle and looking at training performance, there's maybe always going to be some rationale where you want to design that deficit in a way that is going to fit that individual's lifestyle, with managing their stresses, managing their own fatigue, managing their mindset, where are they at psychologically, and also of course predominantly managing performance, making sure that we can keep training sessions in a good spot and prioritize also sessions where maybe they need it more so than others. So there's definitely a few reasons, and honestly I could do a podcast on this. I probably have discussed this quite a lot in other podcasts as well, but just to briefly touch on some of the reasons why we might want to use higher food and not just do baseline low days, quote unquote low days, all the time, and why you might want to set up that deficit in days of maybe having some low days and some higher days, rather than it just being, because if you think about it, you could have, say, some days that are high and some days that are low. You might think, oh well, why not just meet in the middle for all of the days? But there are reasons for that. So first and foremost, even aside from just the overall deficit management, sometimes having some days of higher food can really help someone with managing their diet fatigue, keeping them responsive, giving them a little bit more energy. And even little things, when they have more food, they maybe get a bit more excited. They maybe actually put a little bit more effort into their session. They put a bit more effort into their steps, into their cardio, things that then actually keep the deficit moving well. Whereas if you maybe don't have those things, that individual starts to drag themselves. That individual starts to feel very stressed. That individual starts to feel quite fatigued and tired. And as a result, they then get to a point where they're actually not outputting as much as they need to, or they start to mentally switch off quite a bit, which can be quite a problem. And then that impacts the wider view of the deficit in itself. So there's that aspect of things in terms of the responsiveness in the way that you kind of keep things rolling and you keep things of a high quality. There's the way that, as I just said, it can really help somebody psychologically. So rather than just being a baseline all the time, actually having 1 or 2 days over the week where that intake is slightly higher can really help someone, again, with like honestly just adhering to the diet. Maybe again having a day that they do feel a little bit more excited for, they then don't feel so dragging down on those days that I've just mentioned that are those lower days. They don't feel like there's no end in sight. They feel like they're able to, what I'm then going to touch on is fuel their performance. They're able to train better, right? So often, honestly, the biggest thing is the balance of the deficit, the psychological impact, and also the way that it fuels performance. And often you will find that maybe you do more food on either a rest day before a big session or maybe on the day of a bigger session. But generally, if you're setting up that general deficit, we're not talking about this in the context of like high days or refeed days, that they do place benefit with that, you know, with somebody then thinking like, oh, I've got legs today, like I've got a bit more fuel going into the session, or like we've got a push day today. I know that this is a body part that sometimes drops off a little bit when I'm dieting, but we've got a little bit more behind that, and that can really help as well. And the main reason why, like I say, I have this is general stress management over the week. When I push, and I said this in my last video, and I don't have any form of relief, my body does get into quite a stress state. That's not to say that the deficit isn't necessarily still working. What I tend to find is that fat loss and that deficit kind of actualizes a little bit more than on those days where I back off. And you might find that when you've maybe been pushing in prep or in a diet, and then you start to back off a bit on your output, or you start to eat a little bit more, and you start to see the diet fatigue drop off and the stress drop off, and your body actually becomes a bit more responsive. So, or it starts to actually show the results of what you've kind of been pushing and working for throughout those phases of pushing. Briefly to touch on the other purposes where you might run high food in the setting of running like high days and refeeds, it essentially encompasses kind of all of the above. So all of the above kind of makes sense, but you're also looking at really bringing a physique maybe back to life, really trying to bring up performance, and how much you push those high days and those refeeds depends on the goal. So it might be a case of literally just freshening someone up so they can keep moving forwards. It might be a case of actually we're quite ahead of time, so we're actually going to push these high days a little bit more so that we can see like how flat you actually are. We can see what your response is to running higher food, and that's where maybe those high days in a prep setting definitely come in of use when it comes to like trial peaking, and understand how somebody responds to running significantly higher food, how their physique responds, how their look responds, how training responds, how they respond to fat loss following on from that as well. So there's a lot of different settings, but one thing to know is that when you are in a diet, depending on the diet, depending on the structure, depending on your timeline, it doesn't have to be the same intake day by day throughout the entirety of that diet. You can have, and you might benefit really from having some days where the makeup of that deficit, or whether you use them for a responsive reason, or to just keep you going in the diet, you know, adherence wise, psychologically, physically, whatever it may be, it can be useful to have some high days, some lower days, or whatever generally works best. And there's no rule of thumb. Understanding the individual, looking at their makeup of their week, looking at their training performance, understanding their physique, their response, that's always going to be something that helps you. So that's my bit of education for this video. Hope you've all enjoyed. You've definitely heard enough yapping away now. I am crashing super hard. AJ has also lost his sleep mask, so it's as you can imagine, both of us, this is also the problem. AJ is very tired. I'm feeling very tired. Definitely toward the end of this diet, I'm starting to feel a bit tired now, but I'm also due on my cycle, which is actually the worst thing. So our ability to find said sleep mask, which has mysteriously gone missing in the night, is not great. So my job now is find the sleep mask, see where it is. I probably have put it in the wash by accident, and then do nothing. Reply to client messages, have WhatsApp available, and then just chill out. You can actually hear the creamy going on in the background of the kitchen as AJ is making his creamy for the final meal. And I thought, what a good idea for me to actually talk through my last meal now in a separate room, and then I can overlay the making of the meal and the meal on top of this. That way I don't keep AJ waiting with the last meal or blabber on for ages and let my creamy melt, which is not what we want either. So my final meal on this day is again the same as my normal final meal. So we have the whey in a creamy, which on this day I do actually have 40 grams in that final meal just to meet my protein totals on these days. Then I have 150 grams of raspberries as always, 20 grams of dark chocolate as always, but I do have 2 caramel Snack Jacks. So just to put a little bit of the extra carbs in another meal rather than just being around pre and post, because I already have really enough around that pre and post window. It's nice to spread it a little bit elsewhere in the day. Ultimately somewhere where I am usually one a little bit hungry, but just where I like to have the food. And I think that that's always a good thing to ask either yourself, your clients, when you put food in, especially if somebody maybe has a lower appetite. But same thing is if they have a higher appetite. Once you've got good structure of the meals across the day, general spacing is good, and especially when you've already prioritized a good amount of food towards that pre and post workout window, then you can go, okay, where else are you hungry in the day? Like for some people, they might go, oh, you're going to give me an extra 20 carbs. Like I'd rather have that in my meal 1 because I prefer having a little bit more with my first meal or whatever it may be. Everyone's very different. I personally like it in my last meal. So 2 Snack Jacks added in there on that setup. Oh God, I'm going to start coughing. I will probably keep that the same. I don't really envision myself going back to oats for a good period of time, to be honest, because I'm really enjoying the creamies and the rice cakes. It's so satiating, but also just really nice. And whilst it's a bit hotter, it is lovely because we've still got some pretty hot weather here at the moment. Not super hot compared to other countries, but like 20 degrees gets warm enough here in the UK, especially when we don't have AC in the entire house. But to be fair, it's a bit of a prep hack, post-prep hack. Anyone who's dieting or gets a bit hungry, like having creamy rice cakes, high volume fruit compared to just maybe having even oats or cream of rice, or definitely something that's obviously a lot more calorie dense. It's definitely better for sure. But that wraps up obviously today's food. I have taken you guys through already just simply the rationale for today and the setup of that, and I think it gives you nice perspective on the end of this diet, with yes, me sharing some of the days where my food has obviously been lower as it's needed to be, but also some of the days where my food is naturally a little bit higher as well. Something that I have done around like show weekends as well, especially like this past weekend. AJ told me, as I need to put in like an extra 60 carb, 10 fat on that day, because I always drop weight massively after shows just because I burn a lot of nervous energy. I think I've talked about this before. So instances like that, but today is obviously a great example of it as well. But that's probably going to be what is like the final proper video run through day in the life of this diet, really, because I think I'll probably do some filming this weekend when we do go to Maidenhead for the show, and that will give something a little bit different to show you, I am sure. But either which way, thank you so much for watching this video. If you've made it to the end of the video, we'll comment below glasses. I was gonna say blue light blockers, but I think blue light blockers is a little bit too long of a comment. But I know people find these funny. When I was at uni, everyone used to call me Jimmy Savile, which is it's what you want really from your housemates, but they work and I get great sleep, so that's what matters most. So I'm gonna have my last meal now. Thank you for watching always, guys. please like, subscribe, share the love. I appreciate all the love, all the support. I just hope these videos are helpful, or at least just entertaining, because that's still something that is positive to add into our days, right? So have a great rest of your day, guys, whenever you are watching this, and I'll catch you all, as always, in the next one.